quite a big library of videos, you can imagine, after 15 years of being on YouTube. Literally 15 years next month that I've been on YouTube. And a bunch of my videos have to do with moving a shower drain, but many of them, in fact, I think there's 3 or 4 of them, is talking about moving a drain on a concrete slab. I don't believe I've ever done a video on a subfloor, plywood subfloor, moving a drain. So now that I'm in this situation where I can actually make a video, I'm going to. At one point they had their tub draining on the right side, which is why you have hot and cold supply and a cutout there. And this was the old drain that they capped off. And then they had to reroute the main sewer line, which is this 4-inch line. Then apparently at some point they decided we want a left-hand drain, and yeah, then they had to bring plumbing into the wall and have the shower head and all that stuff over here, which is why we have the P-trap. So eventually this will get squared out and covered up with plywood. Squared out meaning, because I don't know who I'm talking to. So for those of you that want to know, if you have a hole cut out here, you just figure out the length of this and then just bring it out to the furthest point, which is going to be about here. And then square that off, cut that out so you have a nice even square rectangle, whatever. Measure out on a piece of plywood, scab up under here with 2x4 or 2x6 or whatever you have on hand, and then place that piece on there. And yeah, anywho, this is what we're dealing with here. This is 1.5 inches, and in order to have a shower drain we need a 2-inch drain. As it happens, I don't know why, but there's a cutout that was done previously, and through that cutout I could tell that that reduces down rather, from a 2-inch drain somewhere around this area down to 1.5 inches. And so there is a Y on here, I believe, that they tied into, I don't know, whatever 2-inch drain happens to be out there. I'm not really sure. We're going to open this up and find out. But in the meantime, in order to have a shower drain, and this is a large area, so your mileage may vary. This is a large area. This is about a 5.5 foot by 6 foot shower. Either which way, you're going to square out and measure the exact center. So squaring out has to do with, you have bare stud over here and bare stud over there, which gives you a great measurement. This is 66.5, and by the time I measured a couple of times over here and all that stuff, I just rounded out to 33 3/8 would be the center, which is right here. So this lines up to that. That's that line right there. Then left to right, I have a brick facade. Well, it's not even a facade, it's a real brick. And because that varies, that measurement's going to vary because of the brick, I just squared that out to 76.5. And 76.5 comes down to about, ooh, I mucked up my measurement. I think it's 36 1/8. Anyway, that's what this measurement is right here. All right. So now we have center, and knowing what center is now gives me an ability to cut out this area. It doesn't matter how big you cut it out, because eventually you can scab in a piece later. I'd rather have it bigger than smaller because I'm going to be working in there. So I'm just going to come out probably whatever that happens to be. Let me see. Tape measure. That's 7 inches. Let's just round that out to 8. So we're going to round that out to 8. I'm going to give a 16 overall of an opening, which is really, really good opening in order to work, because that's what we are eventually going to do. So 16 will be the mark that we will cut. And to make things even, we're just going to go ahead and do 16 here as well. Now, the only caveat to that, you want to make sure that within that measurement, 16. The only caveat is you want to make sure within that measurement that you're not landing on a floor joist. Not that it's a big deal, but some floor joists are I-beam construction, and you can't cut into an I-beam floor joist. In this case, I know we have 2x10, so I'm not too concerned about it. And I also know that this floor joist is here, and 16 inches later, we should be right about here with another floor joist, which is fine because, you know, I've extended out past that. And then you're going to do the same thing. Once you cut this out, you're going to scab something up underneath and then have a 16x16 piece of plywood put down on there, and then you can cut out for your drain center. It just makes life easier in order to work, and that's why I did it so large. It doesn't have to be 16, it could be 14, but whatever you can. Yeah, you need to get your hands in there wherever that pipe's at. You need to be able to work, and so that's why it's so large. Anyway, I'm going to do the cutout and I shall be back. Alright, a couple things that I did not mention that I probably should have before I started. A lot of times you don't know what's up under your floor, and if you saw with my saw that I didn't plunge cut, I didn't go all the way down, which this is about 3 inches. Knowing full well this is 3/4 inch ply, I probably went about half to an inch or so, and that's it. Because sometimes they shouldn't be doing it, but sometimes you have plumbing supply that runs right up underneath. You have electrical, obviously, and you have drain lines and stuff like that, so you don't want to cut through that. So set your saw for a depth of about, I'd say about an inch if you're going to do something like this on your own. Second thing is, you saw I put an X and a circle and a circle, so I know this piece lines up perfectly, because this will be my scab piece to go back in, and eventually I'll just drill a hole right inside there. Anyway, that little peaksy right there let me know that I had a 2-inch line, so I got lucky. This is, I don't know if you can see it or not, this is what your tub drain was. So what I'm probably going to have to do, I'm probably going to have to cut, what's the easiest way? See, they've already scabbed into this a couple of times. So the hub right here goes straight back to the 4-inch, 3-inch main drain. And I don't know that I want to cut. I could cut right before the hub, and I could cut after the hub here and scab in a piece, put in a Y. My room is limited. You know, again, right there center is right where my wiring is at for the downstairs light. So my room is very, very limited. Not sure how I'm going to work this. Yada. What I might do, this drain might have to be off center. I have enough room right next to this wiring. I have enough room for my P-trap to be over here, I think. So I'm going to be off center going in that direction, I believe. Because I'd rather be 4 inches, 5 inches off center here than a whole foot over here. Because if I came backwards, I'd be a whole foot off center. And yeah, unfortunate, but true. This is not the best case scenario to do a tutorial video on how to move a P-trap, you know, a couple, 2 or 3 feet. But I'm going to make it work, and I will show you along the way how I make that work. Because there's a lot of different ways, but I think the best way is to get my Dremel and just cut off where the hub is at, and then just start from scratch, same as I talked about earlier. I think that'd be the best way. That way I don't have to cap anything. You know, you don't want to cap a P-trap. If I could get into there, right beyond that Y, then yes, I could cap right there and I don't have to worry about it. But I still have to tie into this somehow. And more than likely, this is a pretty tight fit. So just cutting off here and trying to move, it'll be easier just to get rid of all this mess. So anyway, that's what I'm going to get started on. Alright, I managed to get 2 hands on it so I can make a cut and get that out of there. That's garbage. And then I managed to cut out the P-trap over here, which gets me free and clear of the rest of this 1.5-inch pipe. So, that's garbage. Now I have a straight line. Gotta get my file. Yeah, get a file, guys. You'll never get a bite on here with any hub with all this roughness. So I'll get a file for that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure a piece of pipe to where I have my T, and this is a sweeping T, so to speak. That's going to end up about here, so I can get my P-trap. I'm not really sure where I'm going to put it. Probably over here as well. I'll have the most room to put my P-trap. But this is the wrong T anyway. This is 1.5 inches, and I have a reducer, but I'm not going to use it. So I'm going to go to Home Depot and get a proper sweeping T. In the meantime, cut off that hub back here and measure out a piece of pipe to extend out that way. So yeah, my 2-inch pipe is ready. I'm gonna do a measurement, a quick measurement, and get a general idea of how long this pipe is gonna be. With the hub included, I should have about 13, about 12, maybe about 12 inches. I gotta sand that off. Yeah, I'm gonna make a 12-inch cut on a pipe, and then I have to get a connector for that. All right, a couple minutes later, I went downstairs and I got myself a connector and cut this piece of 12-inch, which is probably going to be a bit longer than I need, but it's better to have it longer than to have a piece too short. I also got my file, and I filed off the edge best I could, because as I said, you're never going to get anything on there with all the burrs, so you got to take off the burrs. And another thing too, there's a bunch of glue up around here, and so that has to be taken off too. And if I had some good grit sandpaper, I would use that, but I don't. So I'm going to use a bit of primer. It's glue primer, which is kind of acidic, and it's going to do a really good job of taking off the excess glue. In addition, it's going to prime up the pipe for the connector later on for the other end of the hub of the Y. So yeah, this takes off the glue pretty good. Very short distance and very little play on this pipe. And when you have no play or very little play, it's better to get one of these connectors that have no stop. So when I'm at Home Depot, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get a connector that has no stop. Let me show you what I'm talking about. See, on the inside of here, there's a stop for both ends of the pipe, and the one with no stop will slide past that. Where the two pieces come together, it will slide past that in either direction, and then you can put the glue and the primer on and all that stuff on both sides and just slip it right on halfway mark. So you just draw a little pencil mark where your halfway mark is, slide it on there, and then you can just slide it back to where you need it. I probably won't show that process, but I'm letting you know that they have these connectors with stops and no stops. I'm not going to be able to get this P-trap down here where I thought I could. A lot of people freak out. Oh, you're putting water next to electrical. It's not that big of a deal, trust me, folks. So yeah, unfortunately, my drain is going to be way off center in one direction, about a foot or more, and then in the other direction, a couple, 2 or 3 inches, maybe. I don't know. It's hard to tell right now, but definitely not going to be center the way I wanted it to be. That's good enough for government work. So, what I realized when I started playing around with this, I have a good part of 1.5 to 2 inches of room there, so I might not have to cut this drain after all. In fact, I might not even need this slip bushing. I might need just that alone. We'll see how this works. Do the dry fit. And where's my tape at? I always measure on the inside of this connector rather than right where the stop is at, right there. I got 12.5, and I think I cut a 12-inch section. Is that right? No, 12 and a quarter. Oh my goodness, I'm so good. Perfect fit. So yeah, I can get that in there. You're gonna hold it. Well, you're not gonna have to hold it. I am, because I'm up against this box. It's a big light. I don't think that's not a fan. That's just a big light. So I'm up against this light, so I have to kind of hold it in place until I can let go and it doesn't move. It's about a minute and a half or so. That's all it takes for this glue to dry. So, as I said before, I'm about 3 inches off center in this direction. And in this direction, I'm a good part of a foot. Get a good idea how far I am. 8 inches. I was wrong. 7.5 technically. But I should have done better. I should have done better. I expect more from myself. Let me see if this is at all level. Not bad. Not bad at all. Not bad. I can actually put a little blocking up under the bottom of that and get it perfectly level. So what I'm going to do is do a little extra cutout over here, a little square cutout, if you will, so that I can put this piece back and end up doing my hole cut for my drain. So at the end, before I get started on anything else, the drain is going to be done. The scabbing piece will be back here, and then I can just work without any interruption, knowing that my drain is already set and ready to go. All right, we are all set. The scabbing that I talked about earlier, some people don't understand terminology, which is why I kind of break it down because I don't know who's watching. The scabbing is basically 2x4, so you're putting 2x4, or you could use 2x6, about halfway up under the edges all around. This little 2.5 inches really doesn't matter, but the scabbing is here. I got a little scabbing there. I don't need one in the back because I'm already on a joist, and then I have one here. And that's about it. So I can go ahead and cap this off. I pre-drilled some holes, some screws anyway, so that when I go on camera, all I have to do is run them down. That's all there is to it. Relatively easy for even a homeowner to do, depending on your skill level. And that's all there is. Tomorrow I'll be able to drop a piece in here that'll measure out exactly and put a hole in it in the center and then taper out around the bottom, because I have to kind of match up where these cutouts are. I have my flange sitting flat on the ground. Back in the day, if you did a pre-slope, you would have the floor would bottom out here on these little divots that, you know, the bolts go into. And so these would set flush with the floor, and then the pre-slope, you know, would taper out down to this part here. I don't do pre-slopes, never have, and I never will. But they're kind of irrelevant nowadays anyway, because we're doing sealed system showers. And that's basically all there is. Or I made it happen. I showed you how to make it happen, so now you go do it. If you're gonna call me for advice, please donate $50 for 30 minutes. My link to my PayPal and my Patreon account is down below. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell so you get immediate notifications as soon as I post videos. And thank you very much for your support.